I had been alive for 347 cycles, and in all that time I had never witnessed anything quite as foolish as what happened in the Grand Assembly that day. My name is Vec, and I serve as the junior observer for the Thalaxian Concordance. Not the most exciting job in the galaxy, I will admit. Mostly, I stand in the corner of enormous rooms filled with self-important politicians and record their endless debates about trade routes and mineral rights. Thrilling stuff, really. Absolutely riveting. But that day was different. The Grand Assembly Hall stretched out before me like the inside of a geode someone had hollowed out and filled with uncomfortable chairs. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated sections, each area color-coded to match their homeworld's atmosphere preference. The methane breathers got the purple zone, the ammonia lovers claimed orange, and us regular oxygen types spread across the blue sections like moss on a rock. At the center of it all stood the Judgment Dais, a floating platform where the Council of Elders held court. 5 ancient beings, each supposedly representing the wisdom of 1,000 generations. In practice, they mostly represented ego and bad decision-making. But who was I to judge? I was just the guy with the recording device. The human delegation sat in Section 7 Blue, tucked between the Corthan merchants and the Yilix crystal singers. There were only 3 of them. 3. For an entire species. The lead diplomat was a woman named Ambassador Maya Torres. Mid-40s by human standards, though I had learned not to trust my eye when it came to their aging process. She wore a simple black suit, her dark hair pulled back in what humans called a bun. Nothing fancy, nothing threatening. The other 2 were aides. One was a nervous-looking young man who kept adjusting his glasses, and the other was a woman with red hair who looked like she would rather be literally anywhere else in the galaxy. Elder Thraxis, a towering Velcorn with skin like polished obsidian, raised his primary manipulator to silence the assembly. His voice boomed through the translation matrices embedded in everyone's skulls. "We gather today to address the petition of the species known as humanity," he announced, managing to make it sound like he was discussing a particularly unpleasant stain on the carpet. They seek full membership in the galactic community. Observer status, they claim, is no longer sufficient for their needs. A ripple of whispers spread through the assembly. I noticed the Corthan representative actually laughed. Not a polite chuckle, but a full, barking laugh that echoed off the walls. Ambassador Torres stood up slowly. She did not look nervous. She did not look intimidated. She just looked tired. "Honorable elders," she began, her voice calm and measured. "Humanity has served as an observer species for 23 standard years. In that time, we have contributed to 14 major scientific breakthroughs, assisted in 7 humanitarian crises across the quadrant, and maintained peaceful relations with every member species we have encountered." "Except the Drazen," interjected Elder Korvax, a serpentine being whose species had handed the concept of passive aggression and turned it into an art form. "The Drazen attacked one of our agricultural colonies without provocation," Torres replied evenly. "We defended the source. We did not pursue them beyond our borders. We filed the appropriate incident reports. We followed protocol." Elder Thraxis waved a dismissive appendage. Yes. Very procedural. Very human." He made the word sound like an insult. "But you must understand, Ambassador, that full membership is not simply granted because a species files proper paperwork and plays nicely with others. Then, what does it require?" Torres asked. The 5 elders exchanged glances. I had seen that look before. It was the look of beings who had already made up their minds and were about to enjoy themselves immensely. Elder Prin, a floating jellyfish creature who communicated through bioluminescent patterns, pulsed with colors that translated to smug satisfaction. "It requires that we believe your species is ready, that you have something of value to offer, that you are not simply primitive apes who learn to push buttons and fly through space." The assembly erupted in laughter. I winced. That was unnecessarily harsh, even by Galactic Council standards. The Corthan delegation was practically rolling in their seats. The Yilix were chiming in harmony, which for them was the equivalent of howling with amusement. Torres did not move, did not flinch. She simply stood there, hands clasped in front of her, waiting for the noise to die down. "Is that your official position?" she asked quietly. "That humanity is too primitive for full membership?" Elder Thraxus nodded, clearly enjoying himself. "I am afraid so, Ambassador. Perhaps in another century or two, when your species has matured somewhat, we can revisit this conversation." "I see." Torres paused. "And this decision is final? There is no appeal process?" "Oh, there is always an appeal process," Korvalks hissed with what passed for a smile among his kind. "But it requires sponsorship from at least 3 current full members. And given the general consensus of this assembly," he gestured at the still laughing crowd, "I suspect you will find such sponsors difficult to locate." The red-haired aide leaned forward and whispered something urgently to Torres. The ambassador shook her head slightly, then straightened her shoulders. "Before we depart," Torres said, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade through vacuum, "I would like to make one final statement for the record." Elder Thraxus sighed dramatically. "If you must. When humanity first achieved faster-than-light travel, we were excited," Torres began. "We had dreamed about this moment for millennia, meeting other intelligent species, joining a galactic community, learning from civilizations older and wiser than our own." She paused, and I swear the temperature in the room dropped several degrees. "What we found instead was disappointing." The laughter stopped. You could have heard a photon drop. "We found bureaucracy. We found politics. We found species so obsessed with maintaining their own power structures that they forgot why those structures existed in the first place." Torres looked directly at each elder in turn. "We found people who would rather mock than mentor, who would rather exclude than educate, who would rather feel superior than actually be superior." Elder Prin's colors shifted to angry red. "How dare you?" Torres raised a single finger, just one, her index finger, pointed straight up. The human gesture for "wait a moment," but the way she did it, the absolute confidence in that simple motion, it shut down a being who had ruled sectors of space for 300 years. "I am not finished," Torres said, her voice still perfectly calm. "You asked what humanity has to offer the galactic community. You want to know if we are ready, if we are mature enough, if we are valuable enough." She smiled, and it was not a nice smile. "Let me tell you what we bring to the table." She tapped her datapad, and holographic displays materialized above the assembly floor. "Faster-than-light communication without quantum entanglement," Torres announced. "We cracked it 6 months ago. Our scientists, those primitive apes you find so amusing, solved a problem your best minds have been working on for 6,000 years." The displays showed complex equations and technical schematics. I saw several delegates lean forward, suddenly very interested. "Medical nanotechnology capable of repairing cellular damage at the molecular level," Torres continued, swiping to the next display. "We have effectively cured what you call Telvin syndrome, a disease that has plagued 17 member species for centuries. Gone. We did it in 3 years. More images, more data." The room had gone completely silent now. "Energy generation through controlled vacuum fluctuation," she said, "yields 300 times greater than your Cure fusion plants. 0 radiation. 0 waste. We have been running a prototype in our outer colonies for 8 months. Elder Korvalks slithered forward slightly. This is impossible." Our physicists said. "Your physicists were wrong," Torres interrupted. Respectfully, she cycled through 3 more displays. Agricultural techniques that could triple crop yields on marginal worlds, atmospheric processors that could terraform a planet in decades instead of centuries, artificial gravity generators the size of a briefcase. "Should I continue?" Torres asked sweetly. "Because I have 17 more innovations queued up, and we are just getting started. Turns out that when you are not invited to the fancy parties, you have a lot of time to work." The young man with the glasses was grinning now, and I noticed that his nervousness had been an act. He looked like someone watching a carefully planned strategy unfold exactly as anticipated. Elder Thraxus found his voice. "Why? Why have you not shared these developments with the Council? Because we are only observers, Torres replied. Observer species have limited access to collaborative research networks. We file reports, but they go into a queue behind full members. Sometimes they sit in that queue for years before anyone even looks at them. She shrugged. So we stopped bothering. We decided to solve our own problems instead. This is extortion, Prin pulsed angrily. You are attempting to bribe your way into membership. No, Torres said. I am demonstrating value. You said we needed to prove we had something to offer. Well, she gestured at the displays. Are you convinced yet? Or should I continue? The assembly had erupted into chaos. Delegates were shouting at each other, at the elders, at their own staff members. The Corthan representative who had laughed earlier now looked like he wanted to crawl under his seat. I noticed something else too. Several delegations were already sending encrypted messages, probably to their homeworlds. The information Torres had just casually revealed was worth more than entire planetary economies. Elder Thraxus raised both manipulators for silence. It took several minutes for the noise to die down. This is highly irregular, he began. So is judging an entire species based on preconceived notions and outdated stereotypes. Torres countered. But here we are. The 5 elders huddled together, their private communication channels lighting up like a festival display. I could not hear what they were saying, but their body language spoke volumes. This was not going the way they had expected. Finally, Thraxus turned back to face the assembly. We will need time to review this new information, he said stiffly. The council calls for a recess. We will reconvene in 3 standard days to discuss. No. Everyone turned to stare at Torres. I am sorry, Thraxus said, his voice dangerous. No, Torres repeated. No recess. No 3-day delay while you scramble to figure out how to spin this. We have played by your rules for 23 years. We have been patient. We have been respectful. We have been everything you asked us to be. She stepped forward. You wanted to know if humanity was ready for full membership. You have your answer. Now give us yours. Right now. Full vote. Public record. The silence that followed was so complete, I could hear my own circulatory system. Elder Korvax finally spoke. You cannot demand. Actually, under Article 7 of the Charter, any species denied membership has the right to demand an immediate vote if they present new qualifying evidence, the red-haired aide said, speaking for the first time. Her voice was crisp and professional, which the ambassador has just done extensively. Thraxus looked like he wanted to argue, but he could not. The rules were the rules, and humans apparently knew them better than the people who had written them. Very well, he said, through what I assumed were clenched teeth, if he had teeth. We will proceed to an immediate vote. All full members of the galactic community. You have heard the arguments. The question before you is simple. Should humanity be granted full membership status? He paused, and I swear he looked like he was hoping for a miracle. Cast your votes now. The holographic tally board materialized in the center of the chamber. Green lights for yes, red lights for no. Each delegation had 1 vote. The lights began to appear. Green, green, red, green. I watched Torres's face. She did not smile, did not celebrate. She just watched the board with the same calm expression she had worn since walking into the chamber. More lights. More green than red now. Significantly more. The Corthan delegation's light appeared last. Green. Final tally. 39-8 in favor. The chamber erupted again, but this time it was different. Confused congratulations, shocked approval, and from several corners, barely disguised fury. Elder Thraxus looked at the board like it had personally betrayed him. The vote has passed, he said flatly. Humanity is hereby granted full membership in the galactic community. All rights and privileges thereof. Torres bowed slightly. Thank you, elders. We look forward to a productive relationship. She turned to leave, her 2 aides flanking her. They made it about 3 steps before Thraxus called out, Ambassador? Torres stopped but did not turn around. Those innovations you mentioned, Thraxus said slowly. Will you be sharing them with the community? Now that you are full members? Torres looked back over her shoulder. and that smile returned. The scary one. Of course, she said. We believe in collaboration, in working together for the common good. After all, that is what being part of a community means, right? She paused. We will start submitting detailed research reports next week. Through the proper channels, naturally. I am sure they will get processed much faster now that we are not stuck in the observer queue. The implication hung in the air like smoke. They had the technology. They would share it. But on their terms now. As equals, not as supplicants begging for approval. The three humans walked out of the Grand Assembly Hall, and I swear the entire galaxy shifted slightly on its axis. I stood there, in my corner, my recording device still running, trying to process what I had just witnessed. Three humans had walked into a room designed to intimidate them, faced mockery, condescension, and institutional prejudice, and had not just won, they had dominated. That single raised finger kept replaying in my mind. Such a simple gesture. Such absolute confidence. I had a feeling that the galactic community had no idea what they had just let in the door. And honestly, I could not wait to find out. The 3 days following the vote were absolute chaos, and I had a front row seat to all of it. My supervisor, a four-armed Quilnax named Tim, cornered me outside the observation booth on the second day. His eye stalks were quivering, which meant he was either excited or terrified. Possibly both. Vic, I need you to pull every recording we have of human interactions over the past 20 years, he said, shoving a data tablet into my hands. Everything. Trade negotiations, scientific exchanges, casual conversations in the cafeteria. I do not care if it is Ambassador Torres ordering lunch. I want it all. Why? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. Because half the council thinks we just gave full membership to a species of con artists, and the other half thinks we just made the smartest decision in the history of the concordance, Tem replied. And nobody actually knows which one is correct. I spent the next 48 hours reviewing files. And what I found was fascinating. The humans had not been lying. Every single innovation Torres had mentioned was documented in observer reports filed over the past 5 years. Reports that had indeed sat in processing queues, unread and ignored. The medical breakthrough, filed 18 months ago. The communication system, filed 2 years ago. All of it, properly submitted through official channels that apparently led directly to a digital waste bin. When the council reconvened for the formal integration ceremony, the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. The smugness was gone, replaced by nervous anticipation. Everyone wanted to know what the humans would do next. I took my usual position in the corner, my recording device humming softly. The chamber filled up quickly. This time, attendance was mandatory for all full members. Standing room only. Ambassador Torres entered with her same 2 aides, but this time they were followed by 7 additional humans. Scientists, I assumed, based on the way they carried themselves and the data cases they brought with them. Elder Thraxus called the session to order, his voice lacking its previous authority. We gather today to formally welcome humanity into full membership and to begin discussions regarding the sharing of technological innovations. Torres stood. Before we begin those discussions, I would like to address some concerns that have been raised over the past few days. Concerns. Elder Prin pulsed cautiously. Several delegations have suggested that humanity deliberately withheld information as a negotiating tactic. Torres said. That we sat on these innovations until we could use them as leverage. She paused. I want to be absolutely clear. That is not what happened. She gestured, and one of her scientists stepped forward with a holographic projector. This is Dr. Yuki Tanaka, Torres introduced. She led the team that developed our faster-than-light communication system. Dr. Tanaka was a small woman with gray-streaked hair and the kind of tired eyes that came from too many late nights in a laboratory. She activated the projector, and a timeline appeared. We submitted our initial findings 3 years ago, Tanaka explained. Her accent thick, but her words precise. Standard observer report, filed through the appropriate channels. We received an automated acknowledgement and were told our report would be reviewed within 6 to 18 months. The timeline showed the submission date. Then, nothing. No response. No follow-up. Just silence. After 2 years of waiting, we submitted a follow-up inquiry, Tanaka continued. We were told our original report could not be located in the system, and that we should resubmit. She smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. So we did. We resubmitted with additional data, more detailed explanations, and practical applications. Another submission marker appeared on the timeline. Another period of silence. That second report also disappeared, Tanaka said. At which point we realized that perhaps the problem was not our research, but the process itself. I watched the assembly delegates shift uncomfortably. Several were checking their own data tablets, probably verifying her story. I already knew what they would find. She was telling the truth, so we stopped trying to share, Tanaka concluded simply. We focused on implementation instead. If the galactic community was not interested in our ideas, we would prove them out ourselves and revisit the conversation later. She looked directly at the Council of Elders. Apparently, later is now. Elder Korvax slithered forward. This is a serious accusation. You are suggesting that the Council deliberately suppressed your research. No, Torres interjected smoothly. Dr. Tanaka is suggesting that your systems are broken. There is a difference between malice and incompetence. She smiled that dangerous smile again. Though I will admit, from our perspective, the results were the same. Another human scientist stepped forward. This one was a tall man with dark skin and an impressive beard. Dr. Marcus Webb, Torres introduced. Our lead on the medical nanotechnology project. Webb did not waste time with pleasantries. Talvan's syndrome affects 17 member species, roughly 200 million individuals across the galaxy. We estimated that with full community cooperation, we could have had a treatment ready in 18 months. He paused. Instead, it took us 3 years working alone, which means, mathematically speaking, your bureaucratic inefficiency has resulted in approximately 87 million unnecessary deaths. The silence that followed was suffocating. That is not fair, Elder Prin protested, colors flashing indignantly. You cannot blame us for what? Webb interrupted. For not reading our reports? For not taking observer species seriously? For being so convinced of your own superiority that you could not imagine primitive apes might actually solve problems you could not? His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. You asked what we bring to the table. We bring solutions. We bring results. And yes, we also bring accountability. I noticed that the red-haired aide was distributing data tablets to key delegations. Whatever was on those tablets had delegates' faces going through a rainbow of emotional responses. What is this? Demanded the Corthan representative, staring at his tablet like it might explode. A complete list of every research report filed by observer species over the past 50 years that was never reviewed. Torres replied. Cross-referenced with subsequent independent discoveries by full member species. You will notice some interesting patterns. I managed to sneak a look at the data over the shoulder of a nearby delegate. My circulatory system nearly stopped. The Velcorn had claimed credit for an agricultural technique that had actually been submitted by an observer species 12 years earlier. The Yilix Crystal Singers had won a prestigious award for energy generation methods that had been detailed in an ignored report from another observer species. On and on it went. Dozens of examples. Maybe hundreds. The Council had not just been ignoring observer species. They had been stealing from them. Elder Thraxis's polished obsidian skin seemed to lose some of its luster. These are serious allegations. These are facts, Torres corrected. Documented, time-stamped, independently verifiable. She spread her hands. We are not interested in assigning blame or demanding apologies. The past is the past. But the future? She smiled. The future is going to be different. How different? Korvax asked warily. Torres gestured to her team of scientists. We are proposing a new research-sharing protocol. All member species, full and observer, submit their findings to a centralized database with public access. No more queues. No more lost reports. Complete transparency. That would be chaos, Prin pulsed. Every crackpot theory would flood the system. Then we filter by methodology, not by origin, suggested Dr. Tanaka. Peer review based on scientific merit, not political status. Revolutionary concept, I know. I noticed several delegates nodding. Not the big players, but the smaller civilizations. The ones who had probably experienced similar frustrations with the system. A delegate from the Zurich Collective stood up. They were an insectoid species, relatively new to the community themselves. The Zurich support this proposal, their translator unit announced. We have also experienced difficulties with the current submission process. Another delegate rose. And another. Within minutes, a coalition was forming right there on the assembly floor. Elder Thraxus tried to regain control. This is not the appropriate forum for. Actually, under Article 12, any full member can propose procedural changes during a general session, the red-haired aide said, speaking up again. Second time in a week I am citing the charter to you, by the way. You might want to review it sometime. I had to bite back a laugh. This human woman was fearless. The vote on the new research protocol took less than an hour. It passed 42-5. Only the Council of Elders and their closest allies voted against it. But Torres was not done. We have one more proposal, she announced as the voting display faded. We would like to establish a development corps specifically focused on assisting observer species and newly integrated members. A what? Thraxus asked. Think of it as a mentorship program, Torres explained. Experienced scientists and engineers from established civilizations work directly with emerging species. Knowledge transfer, technical assistance, collaborative research. She paused, with proper credit given to all contributors. Naturally, Dr. Webb stepped forward again. We are volunteering to lead the medical division. We have already identified 47 observer species working on health-related research that could benefit from our nanotechnology platform. And we will take the energy sector, added another human scientist, a woman with short blonde hair, Dr. Lisa Kowalski. Our vacuum fluctuation generators could solve power problems for half the frontier worlds in the community. More humans stepped forward, each claiming a different sector: communications, agriculture, environmental restoration, materials science. They had come prepared. Incredibly prepared. This was not a negotiation. It was a takeover. Except it was not hostile. That was the brilliant part. They were offering help. Genuine, practical help. And framing it in a way that made refusing seem petty and small. This would require significant resources, Korvax pointed out. Funding, facilities, personnel. We have facilities, Torres replied. 3 dedicated research stations in human space. We are offering them to the community for collaborative use. She smiled. As for funding, well, I think we can find some budget line items that are currently being wasted on bureaucratic overhead. She was talking about the council's expense accounts. I saw Thraxus's manipulators clench. The vote took longer this time. There was actual debate. But in the end, the development corps was approved 38-12. Humanity had been full members for less than a week, and they were already reshaping the entire power structure of the galactic community. As the session ended and delegates filed out, I noticed Torres speaking quietly with several of the smaller civilization representatives. Building alliances, making connections, doing politics the old-fashioned way. The young man with the glasses approached me as I was packing up my equipment. Up close, I could see his name badge, Dr. James Park, Cultural Liaison. You are the observer who records everything, right? He asked. That is my job, I confirmed. Good, he said. Because I want to make sure this next part is documented. He led me to a small conference room where Torres was meeting with the Zurich delegate and representatives from 3 other observer species. Thank you for coming, Torres was saying as I set up my recorder. I wanted to discuss something important. The council just approved our development corps, which is excellent. But there is another project we are working on, and we would like your input. She activated a holographic display showing a political map of the galaxy. The Council of Elders has held their positions for an average of 230 years. Torres said. There are no term limits, no regular elections, No mechanism for removing members except in cases of severe criminal activity. That is how it has always been done, the Zurich delegate said cautiously. That does not mean it is how it should always be done, Torres replied. We are proposing a constitutional amendment. Regular elections for council positions. Open to all full member species. Term limits of 25 years maximum. The room went very quiet. You want to overthrow the council, one of the other delegates said slowly. No, Torres corrected. We want to democratize it. There is a difference. The council can still exist. The elders can still serve, but they should have to earn that service. And other species should have the opportunity to contribute at that level. Dr. Park leaned forward. We have been running the numbers. To call for a constitutional amendment, we need support from 2/3 of full members. That is 32 votes. We currently have commitments from 14 species, including ourselves. You are asking us to join your coalition, the Zurich delegate said. We are asking you to think about what kind of galactic community you want to live in, Torres replied. One where power is concentrated in the hands of a few ancient beings who have not faced a real challenge in centuries. Or one where every member species has a voice and a chance to lead. She let that sink in for a moment. This will not happen overnight, Torres continued. Constitutional amendments take time, debate, compromise. But if we start now, if we build the coalition carefully, and present a united front, we can make real change. I watched the other delegates exchange glances. They were tempted. I could see it in their body language. But they were also scared. The council will retaliate, one of them said quietly. Let them try, Torres said with absolute confidence. We have the law on our side. We have public support. And most importantly, we have solutions to problems the council has been ignoring for decades. She smiled. The only weapon they have left is fear. And I promise you, we have faced scarier things than a committee of bureaucrats. The meeting continued for another hour. I recorded all of it. By the end, Torres had secured tentative support from 2 of the observer species and promises to consider from the others. As everyone filed out, I found myself alone with Torres for a moment. That was quite a performance in the assembly, I said before I could stop myself. Torres looked at me, and for the first time since I had met her, she let the diplomatic mask slip. She looked exhausted. It was not a performance, she said quietly. It was survival. We have been watching the galactic community for 23 years, Vec. Watching how it treats species that are different. Species that do not fit the mold. Species that dare to question the established order. She paused. We knew that if we came in as supplicants, begging for acceptance, we would be crushed. So we came in as equals, as partners who could not be ignored. The technology reveals were strategic, I said. It was not a question. Of course they were, Torres admitted. We have been developing innovations for years specifically to have leverage when this moment came. We knew we would only get one chance to make our case. She smiled tiredly. Turns out we were right. And the development core. The constitutional amendment? How long have you been planning all of this? Since the day we achieved observer status and realized what that actually meant, Torres replied. We are very good at long-term planning. It is kind of our thing. She picked up her data tablet and headed for the door, then paused. You know what the real irony is, Vec? The council was right about one thing. Humanity was not ready for full membership. Not because we are too primitive, but because we actually remember what it is like to be powerless. To be dismissed. To be told we do not matter. She looked back at me, and we are not going to let that happen to anyone else if we can help it. She left, and I stood there in the empty conference room, my recorder still running. I thought about that single, raised finger. That moment of absolute confidence. The galactic community had spent 200 years building a system designed to maintain power for a select few. They had created rules and procedures and bureaucracies, specifically to keep newcomers in their place. And humanity had walked in, learned every single rule, found every loophole, and was now using the system against itself. It was brilliant. It was ruthless. It was absolutely terrifying. 3 months later, the constitutional amendment passed with 34 votes in favor. The first elections were scheduled for the following year. Two of the human scientists won their council seats. Ambassador Torres declined to run, saying she preferred to work behind the scenes. The Development Corps launched with 67 participating species and was solving problems faster than anyone had thought possible. And me, I got promoted? Turns out that being the person who recorded the exact moment the galaxy changed was good for my career. I still see Ambassador Torres sometimes, in the hallways of the assembly complex. She always nods politely, and I always nod back. And sometimes, when the Council of Elders is being particularly difficult in session, I see her catch my eye and smile, that same scary smile, the one that says she knows exactly what she is doing and exactly how it will end. I had been alive for 347 cycles when I witnessed the thing that changed everything. Now I have been alive for 350 cycles, and I am watching humanity reshape the galaxy one careful, calculated move at a time. And you know what the funniest part is? They keep insisting they are just trying to help. Maybe they are. Or maybe they remember what it feels like to be underestimated, and they are making absolutely sure it never happens again. Either way, I am glad I am just an observer, because whatever happens next, it is going to be one hell of a show.